felt the whips and remember chains, but my soul has been forged by my father's flames. Fight your fears and heal your pain, and victory will be in your name.
I used to be weak, but I'm not weak no more. I found the strength of my ancestors deep down in my African core. I used to be frightened, I'm not afraid no more. The Father blessed me with the heart of a lion and a warrior soul. So no weapon that form against I shall not prevail. And no man that rise against I, that war they shall never win. 'Cause I will conquer, oh I will conquer, yes I will conquer them. Come on, let's conquer, oh I will conquer, rise up and conquer them.
Tell them no retreat, no surrender. I shall fight till the end of days. I was born as a Makai warrior, and the Almighty God my blade. Fire burn all Satan carrier. Father loose all shackles and chain. This morning first thing as I wake up, King David told Sam to the brain. Don't let your courage go down, keep it up. And if your heart rip up and stitch it up, don't let your faith them fall, pick it up. When my cup was empty, God fill it up. Don't take the devil contract, rip it up. And if your bad mind people to go meet it up, pass me the Congo drum and let me beat it up. God on my side, me no give it up.
So no weapon that form against I shall not prevail. And no man that rise against I, that war they shall never win. 'Cause I will conquer, oh I will conquer, yes I will conquer them. Come on, let's conquer.
Sing the devil contract, rip it up. And if your bad mind people
conquer them.
Thank you, Father. I want to say thank you, Lord. You are everything, Father. Thank you.
Father, you alone shall guide me. No man shall lead my path. In the wind I hear your quiet whispers, and you heal my broken heart. Even some of my friends turn enemies, and they pray for right to feel. And remember you gave us your only begotten son, but we gave him the wound of lies. Send down your warriors with the hello, be carried on to the end of days. No matter how the devil try trick me, unto you my soul I will give. Father, I know this storm is coming, I can see the high tide raise. Without you there is no rudder. Could it be that we is my soul?
No weapon that form against I shall not prevail. And no man that rise against I, that war they shall never win. 'Cause I will conquer, oh I will conquer, yes I will conquer them. Come on, let's conquer, oh I will conquer, rise up and conquer them.
I am a man, I am a champion, I am a warrior. So who are you to tell me that I cannot make? Who are you to tell me that I am not the greatest thing that God ever created?
Good morning, Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique. You're listening to Hard Talk Grenada. A very special good morning to those of you joining us on 97.5 City Sound FM, 89.5 CRFM, 92.9 Sister Al Radio broadcasting from Hillsborough, Carriacou, and of course 94.9 We Noise Radio out there in Brooklyn, New York. A very special good morning to those of you joining us on the live video, whether it's on Facebook, on YouTube, on WhatsApp, wherever you may be joining us this morning, a very special good morning to you. It is a beautiful, 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 beautiful Wednesday morning here in the Spice Island. With me in studio this morning, my co-host, Mr. Bola. Good morning, Mr. Bola.
Good morning to you, Miss Duncan, and a very, very pleasant good morning to our listening public out there. As you have said, beautiful Wednesday morning. I've been in the town of St. George very early this morning, and so I am happy to be here with you.
All right. And joining me as well, as I promised, I have none other than the Honorable Minister Gregory Bowen. All right. Let me just get him set up, guys, and then we will be right back with you.
You're listening to Hard Talk Grenada via www.hardtalkgrenada.com.
Stay up to date with all that's happening with the new national party, NNP. Send us a message via text or WhatsApp on 405-8683 with your name, email, and constituency. Stay in the know with NNP. Get updated.
All right, guys, and we are back. And as I promised, with me in studio this morning, along with my co-host, Mr. Bola, I have the Honorable Minister for, so many portfolios. Yeah. Transportation, works, implementation. What am I missing? Infrastructural development. There we go.
Almost everything to do with infrastructure, telecommunications, all of those stuff, transport, community development, energy. A pretty
yes,
wide field
portfolio.
Yes.
All right. Well, good morning, Minister, and we are happy to have you.
Good morning to you here at the studio. Good morning to you, the viewing and listening public. It's a pleasure to be back here once again.
Absolutely. And of course, we're making some renovations to the studio so that when we come on...
We're planning, Ms.
We're planning.
Yeah, because it hasn't started yet.
Hopefully...
Minister I looking all around.
hopefully by the end of the week, we should have it done where we have a clear partition between the guest and the host so that we can do away with the mask for a while, because it's rather inconvenient, and it doesn't you don't get a clear sound when it's on. But we'll do our best with what we have so far. Minister, I'm very happy that you are here because we have so much to talk about this morning. Well, of course, I'll let you say good morning to everyone.
Yes, and we all apologize. It's a COVID time and we must keep social distance as well as wear the mask.
Yes.
So I'll try to go a bit slowly so that you understand clearly, and I think the host will, if she doesn't hear too clearly, she will ask me to repeat, I'm sure.
Yes, of course.
So good morning to you all again, the listening and viewing public. And I do believe and I hope that I will be coming across clear enough. Thank you.
All right. Now, let's get started. Let's get right into it. Minister, there are so many things under your portfolio that we definitely do need to touch on. And I want us to begin with, of course, what has happened during the COVID period when we were on lockdown, on quarantine, and the effects that would have had on the infrastructural development projects and so on within the country that were expected to begin in the earlier part of this year?
Well, I think COVID taught us something, a lesson. Mm-hmm. But we in the ministry, way back when we participated in CARSIP, as a Caribbean Regional Communication Infrastructure Project, we recognize now, as we did then. And Brother Bola, you bear me out in 1995. My theme on the platform was science and technology. And I mentioned then that we will have to ensure that our people sit in Grenada and work for people abroad. Mm-hmm. Some have been doing so, but in a very minor proportion. But what COVID has taught us is not for working for people abroad. You must be able to stay home and perform your task. That is how we survived. Many of the businesses survived. People in the ministry. I was working from home. My PSs were working at home. And a lot of people, necessary people, were working at home. CASIP is that project which brought the infrastructure. That is the road for the nice cars, which you might call ICT. The ICT must drive on the road. But we must not get it wrong. All the beautiful people with the programming and the so forth will come to naught if we do not have the infrastructure through which the communication must go. And that's what CASIP did. We brought hard fiber. We connected all government buildings. And there is a fiber that is running from Carriacou to Grenada. That is already commissioned. And we have Digicel, which is part of the public-private partner. They now have run a cable, so it's not only Lime alone who have fibers. They run a cable, and they will be connecting to people's home, individual home, and they will compete with Flow in giving the maximum number. Some people or some schools already have, 500 megabits and so forth. Homes might go to 100 or 50 or 30. But with that in your house, with that infrastructure and broadband capacity, you'll be able to stay at home and work. Coupled with this, we have moved, even before CASIP, to what we call the DG4R, Digital Governance for Resilience. That is where we put in everything online, all government services.
Right.
Then we moved to another project. The DG4 is about 15 million US, and we have moved to another project which is the Caribbean Digital Transformation. You notice CASIP, a lot of it worked with the government to put it online, and the DG4R. But the final stage is to move the private sector and everybody online.
Right.
That's the way of doing business.
Right.
And the CASIP has shown that we are on the right path, and we must expedite the implementation and execution of the project. That is why implementation now is so important. The Ministry of Implementation must implement at a much faster rate.
Right.
This will mean one thing. We promised the IMF and the World Bank and so forth that we will have a certain number of persons. And remember, we must not cross 9% of our GDP with respect to staff and so forth. But we will need staff now, not forever, to implement those projects that we have, to bring back the economy on stage. And not only that, within 3 or 4 years, we should have all these telecommunications and ICT projects in place.
Right.
So if something hits us, it may not be this pandemic, but it may be something that you cannot go out. But you need the economy to move, right? So we will be prepared. And I think Grenada Zone is the most prepared in the OECS and in the Caribbean.
Okay.
So, Minister, from what you have said, I am getting the picture that while COVID-19 was new and bring a lot of new realities to light, we were, because you said at the end Grenada was the most prepared in the region, we were already on the way, preparing for digital governments, preparing for people to... And does that, I don't know whether it is CASIP or the DG4R or which program does, because in my locality, Conference, to be exact, in St. Andrews Northeast, there's been this undersea cable that came out into Conference and is hooked up to one of the antennas and so on. And it is my understanding that this is to assist with the broadband and to extend the ability of Grenadians to get better coverage through the internet. How does all of that fit into it? I'm not sure who brought that undersea cable, where it came from. Can you give us just a little more?
Yes, that undersea cable is a part of the CASIP program, started many years, 2-3 years ago, before COVID. It links Carriacou to Grenada, and Grenada is linked to the rest of the world through the Southern Fiber and many other, 2 other undersea cables. Now, to get to Carriacou was a radio link, and there'll be buffering and all sorts of problems with them. So that particular cable will be taking care of Carriacou in particular. So you have speeds up there already that the people have never seen before. So we're not leaving Carriacou out of it, and Carriacou, I guess now, with the radio link, could only be between Carriacou and Petit Martinique. But we want to join that ring to St. Vincent. St. Vincent may participate in the CASIP project too. So if by some reason a nice little child went under the sea and sliced the cable from here to Carriacou, you're coming back through St. Vincent into Carriacou again.
Okay.
And if you slice from Canoan to St. Vincent, they come through Grenada. So you have that redundancy ring, which is of extreme importance. If all fell down, as it did during the COVID, and we did not have telecommunication, what would we have done? We had our Zoom meetings. We had everything. And it brings back a point to energy in the same way. If the telecommunication system had failed, what would have happened to us? Well, the economies all over the world would have shut down. And we pointed out in that IRENA meeting, the International Renewable Energy Agency, and its renewable energy, no place in Grenada, except water as a utility, had a backup with solar power or with renewables.
Right.
Yes, the backup was always with diesel. So, but we were getting diesel all the while. But if the sea route was chopped, as I pointed out there and everybody looked up, let us say this thing take 9 months. Everybody falling sick. How would diesel reach in Grenada? It points to us that we must move to renewable energy as quickly as possible. And that is why I got the meeting, the ARENA meeting, to move speedily to enforce further the arrangements we have with the Green Climate Fund to show to ensure that if these things come back, some people say if, it may not come back in the same form, it may not come back in 10 years, but something will happen maybe in 50, 20 years, in 20, 30 years, and we must be prepared. So it is very important that we do have renewable energy as a source, or we start to put renewable energy as backup systems.
Okay. Now I have someone on the live video is asking about the aspect of training that comes with this digital governance. Do we have people trained? And as you said, we are going to need people in implementation to move this forward. Are we in the process of training these people to get them to the point where we need them to be in order to be more effective?
Very, very good question. And part of the DG4R, Digital Governance for Resilience, including a component of training. But I think that person is from the private sector. They don't work with government. We'll have all persons in government over a period being able to deliver services online.
Right.
But it's the private sector and the people at home. That's where we move to the Caribbean digital transformation that will take care of these people. And more so, under the last project, we do have a set of projects where people, the private sector in particular, must get involved. Remember we had the grant aid where people applied for monies and so forth? We had a lot of problems with it, we still do. But we're moving this way where people will be involved in like payment, a system, you pay digitally, etc. So even the person in the markets and so forth, everybody will be digital. So that training is critical now, not only for our public sector, but also for the private sector. Yes, and we'll ensure that while we can't get everything and we have to get a lot of equipment, we do have a component that belongs to training. And the government on its own, in the budget, we are prepared to push to get further training, because we may have we do have some capable persons here. And as we move from stage 1, we could train locally, move to stage 2, we might get some foreign persons, etc.
Right.
But it is critical. And our young people will receive the training there, remember that? They just have the natural knack, they grow up in the environment.
Yes.
So when that becomes a part of the training, you hear Minister Pierre talk about it. So in school, it will come naturally.
Right, but for the now aspect of it, because we're in a position where there are Imani graduates and so on, will they be engaged in this process to fill some of the gaps that we may have available?
The training component, a part of the NTA, yes, that's all. That digital training, it's like using the computer and using the phone, right?
Right.
A lot of it will come with practice, but you must have that component of training. And it may not come easily because you don't have the facilities to train them. And remember, the Imani is to get them to go out to businesses.
Right.
How many can the business take? So we must look at the NTA to provide the training, afternoon classes, and all of this. The whole world is changing. So the question that you're asking, we have been thinking about it, and we have to revise our budget accordingly to facilitate training. Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Now, as we move from infrastructure, well, not infrastructure, but I want us to talk a little bit about the projects that was scheduled for this year, for the early part of this year, that have been hindered. I know that road coming up Marist Hill, that was one of the projects that was scheduled for this year that has been affected. How soon can we see some work starting on some of the major projects that we have scheduled for this year?
Yes, it's my pleasure to give the information, and I just want to ask you to ask our listeners to, on the media, just tell us if we're clear. So you pop up to you. They don't have to call, but you read this every now and so often.
Yes.
So just put it in big capital letter. Slow down a bit, please. We're not hearing you too clearly because we understand the importance of the mask, but we have to wear it.
Yeah.
So you mentioned particularly about Maras Hill. We know what's the problem there. We started, and just about the Christmas time, when the whole economy would have been turned upside down, we decided to do a temporary work, and we made it very clear that we were going to restart the project in the slowest period after Christmas. Well, COVID said, well, there's no slowest period. Now I'm in charge. You're not doing anything.
Right.
But we went, and you know that these are times when we have to do things structurally. The Prime Minister announced the reopening committee, task force, and we had lots of subcommittee. And the subcommittee on construction looked at Maras Hill. We put in place, in order for any site to resume, they must apply to the ministry. The contractor there has applied, and we have given him the go-ahead. And I see that they have done they smoothed the road.
Yes.
So people are saying, well, they wouldn't start. Yes, we are starting. Don't forget, what we have to do now is the retaining wall. So we'll excavate sufficiently on the side to do the retaining wall, and then we will remove some so that we can compact it. But in the meantime, the narrow path that you have, we feel it shouldn't be bumpy for you.
Right.
It was very bumpy.
Yes.
Very.
Right. So now we're narrowing the road. You get a little more distressed, so we give you a smooth road. But that is going to start, I think, by next week. And we had asked the people with containers, but it's not their problem because COVID got in the way, to try to move the containers before we start on the work. Yes, because passing through town is not an option.
Right.
Yeah. So that will start to give us a maximum of, in fact, the grading of the road is the first component. We ensure that we had the Montparnasse Road, which is a bypass today, well prepared and finished. And I say 1 week, we should see work started there. The contractor, we know it's Sunrise, and it's the same contractor, he just stopped.
Right.
Yes. And the other projects, if you want to mention them, of course, Molyneux on the western side.
Yes, give an update.
That gave an update. We have shortlisted 5 consultants. These will go to the bank. They'll give no objection. Then 5 of them will send in their proposals, and thereafter they will come in. 1 will be selected. As you know, when you're doing external funding, if they have the rules that you must give the person 30 days or 45 days. So even though the person is finished in 30 days, they will hold back and give you in 45 days. There's nothing much that you can do. Remember, this is funded by the UK government, and they passed it through the Caribbean Development Bank. So we have to use their rules for international bidding, etc.
I just want us to stick a pin there because that is one of the issues that I wanted to talk about independently. But since we're on it, let's just stick a pin there. So what we're saying is that work can be done to repair the road, or is that to do the geological study?
That the consultants will tell you, do the geological study and tell you, and we believe the outcome of that study was don't touch that road.
Wow.
The
Now,
bypass we are working on,
right.
but the actual road at Molyneux, if you look at it, it is a 90%. So they'll tell you find a new road, and they'll find it for you
Right.
by going down and say no, it cannot pass here because we have the same cinder gravel throughout, and they'll file an area. It may be through private land, but they will tell you this is the safest and most stable path for your roadway.
So we're looking at a more extended use of the Mount Morris Molyneux route for traffic that's coming from the western side. I just want us to touch on it because it's been an issue that, and there are a lot of people who believe that, well, if we just put up a wall, it's going to resolve the whole slippage
At the
issue.
Molyneux Road?
Yes.
Yes.
We have a lot of local engineers who've never been to study engineering, but they just look at things and they have all these fancy ideas. And you listen to them or you read them up on Facebook. They make it sound as though this thing is as easy as drinking a cup of milk, It's the government just wanting to play around and make you believe that there's so much that has to be done. But someone with your background and your understanding must make the public know that this is not an overnight task. That is something that needs serious studies, as you've said, the geological studies, that you need people with engineering skills, background, and experience to advise us what to do. I mean, locally we believe, from what you have said and what the ministry have said, that the strongest possibility is that a new route may have to be found. But the studies must prove that to be correct. Yes?
Right.
And all this talk about people, oh, well, if a year ago a wall was built, that would not have happened. We could have prevented that by spending. I heard a guy go as far as to say all it would have taken was about $60,000 a year ago.
I heard that too.
And sometimes when things are said, and they say it with such confidence, that a lot of people listen and believe these stories because they just can't understand why would government allow the road to deteriorate that way. And I know it was not government allowed it to deteriorate that way. And it's earth movement and a whole lot of other things that we have absolutely no control over.
Well, the road would have just gone with the wall that you
Right.
built. The 60,000 wall, that is not even a good set of drains along stable roads and type 1 drains too, the slipper drains.
Right.
But what is important there is that the cracks appeared in the area. We looked at it. That is why since in 2013-14 we wrote a project for about 77 slips throughout Grenada, Carriacou and Petit Martinique.
Right.
Molyneux wasn't it. Of course it was not opening up that, but the signs were there. Anybody who did a limited amount of soil analysis, soil engineering will realize this is a problem. One, every time you tap it up a little bit, it comes back. So the underlying root is there.
Right.
It will take, I believe, most of the $28 million that Prime Minister Cameron at the time brought to us from the UK. But the project extends all along the Western Main Road.
Right.
So the state will have to fund the rest. We could ask people to come in. Some may come in, but the burden will be on us. Because there are other areas where there is not a slippage, but there's rockfall.
Right.
Dangerous rockfalls as well.
Right.
And we learned from this some many years ago what a boulder can do to a bus. Yes?
Yes, on the same way.
So I want to repeat the point you've made. This is not a simple matter, and it is not an issue of you could have done something before. It's the same thing that we would have been doing now, this soil study. And whereas 300 feet below, when they drill down with the telescopic sight, it would show you something that we never know. It might show you a big hollow or a cave or something. But we need the apparatus, and we need the people that could read the result from the instrumentation analysis that will be done there. It is not a simple matter if you put something before. If we had gotten the project before, yes, the monies and so forth, we would have done the same thing. And then perhaps it will lead to the same result, finding a new road in the same spot that will pass the road now. But that bit, in fact, when you tell the people then they have to move speedily, they tell you what to move for. I see nothing going on here. But the analysis, would have shown it up.
Now, Minister, that brings into focus another question. Yesterday, we had with us in studio Miss Oslin Crosby from NADMA, and that road also poses another problem, or that area also poses another problem in the event that there may be an underwater slippage. The disaster that it may cause to that surrounding area. Will the geological study, because we're looking at them drilling almost 300 feet to figure out what is happening under there, will that pose a problem for the people in the area? And once that is being done, will the people in that area be put on high alert? Will they be given a strategy or a plan in the event that something of that nature happens?
Yes, well, already the ministry, the parliamentary representative, all of us in cabinet, we are looking at what will happen to these people. Some of them, I think, areas have been identified for them to move, but these are in the close vicinity.
Right.
But the others, if it shows that you have to move, yes, plans are being made for them. As a matter of fact, we have the emergency fund from the World Bank.
Right.
The Prime Minister declared a local emergency. We send this up in there, and already we're looking to get some funds. The state will have to put a lot,
Right.
but whatever assistance we get from them, as if it were a hurricane base, this is another disaster, then we will be able to help with the relocation. But we have all of that in mind. That's why NADMA is a big part of the exercise here, because we expect a lot of more persons will have to move. I remember one gentleman, he said, no, he was not moving. He was glad to at the end of the day.
Yes. Now, we're looking at a situation where now with the extended use of that Mount Morris Road area, I'm from the area, so I traverse the road on a daily basis. There has been a lot of deterioration of the road over the period of time, of course, with the increased traffic. Are we looking at very soon some work being done on strengthening there are areas in that road that needs strengthening. There is some work that needs to be done on the road itself where holes are created and so on. Are we looking at work being done in that area, because of course it's going to be used for an extended time? And if that is the case, would we see traffic being rerouted through that Willis area to accommodate those renovations?
There will be some rerouting, but I doubt it will be sufficient to take care of this. But what we know is that the work will be done. We had asked the COVID committee to work on Maras Hill and on those roads at the same time, because we toured there with residents in the area, and we identified that we'll cut a bit of road, a new component of road. But COVID came, and we asked, can we do it? If we get a contractor who will work during the COVID times. And the question came up, well, the private sector wants to do their job as well. This person wants to do their job. It is not the best even to have workers out at that point in time. So that's why we had to remain up to this point. We were putting in some more guardrails, but there will be a lot of inconvenience, more inconvenience for the people along that road. Some will pass the other side, but we have to do the work.
The work has to be done.
We'll do it in the evenings and in the night, but yes, it will still inconvenience a lot of people.
And I must say I'm quite happy with the work that is being done so far, because we have seen coming through Témoigné, that road that takes from Molineux to Mount Morris, guardrails have been placed, have been erected for safety reasons, of course, because there's a lot of precipice, areas there. So a lot of work has been done in that area so far. But I do look forward to, especially with the rainy season upon us, work being done. I see some people in Mount Morris, I must say, have started work on I would say, protecting property. They've erected walls in their property, which has contributed to the extension of the road in some areas. So, of course, that has taken a little bit of burden off of government, but of course they are also protecting their own property. But I know that the busmen of Surtees have a big issue, of course, with this area, because they're saying that it is a lengthy trip. a longer route, more gas, tires and brakes and so on. However, I cannot agree, I must say, with them calling for any industrial action at this time as a result of that, because it is not something that situation that government has created. Nor is it a situation that can be fixed overnight. So really and truly, calling for industrial action at this time is really not going to solve any problems. How are you guys engaging these? How is government engaging the CITES busmen as it relates to their concerns, to see what easements can be given to them to cushion the effects of this situation?
Well, first of all, it's not only an issue of the CITES busmen. We have been engaging. If you note that the fare increase was asked for everybody.
Right.
And you started on a good note there. Should it be for everybody? But if they're part of the organization and they're supporting for everybody, then we must look at it at the wider, with a wider spectacle, so that everything can be taken into consideration.
Right.
First of all, we empathize with the transportation sector. They might be the worst hit, and we're not doubting that. But the revenues for everybody have dropped significantly. So there are lots of people, and I think across the spectrum, the political spectrum, the economic spectrum, everyone supports that this is not the time, to call for this. So how can we, help the transportation sector in particular? And I know that the parliamentary representative has met with the association, and we will give her some support if she calls on us to come to help her, and we expect to do that very shortly, because I think she only had one meeting and she's prepared to hold another, and we will go there to support her.
Right.
But we have been engaging a cross section that represent all the buses in the country, although we have complaints from a lot of areas that if after we meet with that cross section, they don't know what's going on, and they're calling for meeting within their respective zones. That's we are accustomed to this, so we will do this. But at a point in time, when we looked at exactly what is happening, the transportation sector gets hit, but remember, tourism sector is the most decimated. It's decimated right across the way. They have nothing going on there. So it is not only them. You have the small businesses that are gone as well.
Right.
So all of these have come to government for some support. That's why we have the relief, or what we call the stimulus package.
Right.
But this is taken from taxpayers' money, as you know. There's a feeling of some of us, it's just like you see some engineers who say something going up there. One lady called and she told me, well, why government and pay this across? I say, well, madam, when I go to Parliament and I support raising the taxes, every time you make one step, we put a meter and we tax that. That's how government gets the money. Outside that could only be grants.
Right.
The loans, you still have to pay it back.
Yeah.
And with interest. So it's the same citizen that must pay it back. And then she thought a while. You see, in their view, government has a pool of money and they would not use it to give relief to the people.
Right.
So I think I want to make people understand where government gets the money. So at the same time, the stimulus package is coming from taxpayers as well.
Right.
To help those in need. All of us will put, but who will receive? Only those in need. And I don't think the population has anything against that. So drop in government revenue, I make that point to say there's only so much that government can do with the people's money. Or how do we try to help them? We recognize it's COVID time and health is of paramount importance. Therefore, the number of passengers per bus was reduced. Not only in Grenada, throughout the world and in the region. If you look at the US and the UK, and they have no seat in here, you have to go to the other one. And in the other one, you could only have one person sitting as well.
Right.
The difference between there and here is that the state is picking this up already, right? But right now, it's a private sector busmen who have to deal with this drop in revenue. So
Right.
they were supposed to take 10 passengers. We have increased that to 12.
I think there are 14 now in a minute.
Right. Well, passengers. You have 14
Oh,
persons.
12 passengers plus
Right.
the
Yes.
driver and the conductor.
14 persons.
Yes.
So if you look at 50 cents and you left it at 10, that is 10 by 5, a half, right? That's a $5 per trip or so. But now if you increase it by 2 more, you get the same $5 and so.
Yeah.
And in the top, remember, you can now, we have also removed the mandatory nature of the conductor. You know what is mandatory? Health. The sanitizing of the hands and the buses, etc. That's mandatory.
Right.
Now, if you can do it through technology, then you don't need a conductor. That poses another problem, the conductor and his job.
Yes.
But for those who operated without a conductor before, that's a big problem for them, and they say to pay $800, $900 per month in a low revenue situation. This, and we have listened to them. So if they can put the technology there where the person can come in, sanitize his or her hands, right, and then get to the seat under the watchful eyes of the driver, then once you apply to the police and he looks at your mechanism and it can work with health, then you do not need a conductor.
Okay.
So and the additional $900 is not there. If you already had a conductor, that is of concern now, because you will say, I'm not making enough, and you'll put the conductor away.
Right.
So immediately we have that social aspect, and the Ministry of Transport is working with other ministries to see how we can have a program to get them in there. Do they go to the NTA and do a quick training in construction, because construction is coming up?
Right.
So before the buses get back to stream, before COVID is a thing of the past, then they'll have some form of employment.
Right.
So we continue with sanitizing the buses. Remember, the drivers and conductor, the operators, they're responsible for the hands and the passengers. But every time the bus comes into the station, it is sanitized. Now we have a company doing this with the mist blower.
Right.
You go right around and you sanitize the bus, because health is critical. The buses, in the first time, just before we announced the lockdown, they decided that they're not running, And they told me, say, listen, Chief, it's not that we strike, there's no strike. We are afraid for our lives. And they say when they see passengers who have to pay them, falling out the money and throw it on the ground.
Oh.
They don't want to touch their hands.
Yeah.
They realize that they are afraid and the passengers are afraid. So they say, this is time for us to give it a break. Well, not long after, we had to shut the country down, because they were feeling it while we were watching and seeing how as long as we could continue, they were feeling it. So we continue with the sanitization. That is costing government up to, right now it's about 40,000, but as more buses pick up, it's going to go to 50,000 a month. We are doing that. And they're the one that should do it. We said we'd have done it up to June, but we're continuing up to September with a
Right.
review in August. So they do not have that additional cost as well.
And that 50,000, hopefully, it's island-wide, eh? For all
Island-wide.
buses.
Island-wide, yes. Then we have the bus terminal relief. When you go into the bus terminals, you must pay a certain sum of money. I think it averages at 2, because some sector, those in association understand they pay 150, and if you're not in the association, you pay 250. That is what is bandied about. So I asked my people to check that very clearly for me. But even now, even at $2, when every time, and now you must go into the terminal. Before, you could turn around and go. But health is of critical importance. Even if you don't want to stay in the terminal, you come into the terminal, you get sanitized, and you go back to where you should be.
Well,
you could go and pound the road that you want, but you must come in there. So
tell
every
you-
time you come in there, they're going to note you, and you're supposed to pay something.
I'll tell you this, Minister. There has been complaints, and I actually witnessed it this morning, where there are some buses that actually are not making the full road. They drop some of the passengers, this morning I saw one drop passengers by that GUT building before you go up to St. John's Street there. And I want us to reinforce the importance, because you see they're doing it because they feel, okay, well, I can get ahead of the bus that's behind me if I drop these people here and I run through back up to St. Paul's or back up to Grand Mall or wherever it is. I can get ahead of the person in the back of me. But in doing that, they are actually risking the lives of the next set of passengers that they would pick up because their bus has not been sanitized. So I want us to reinforce the importance of the bus going to, and not just for the busmen, but for the passengers as well, because your safety and your health is your responsibility. So if I am on a bus and a bus says to me, well, I'm going to drop you here because I want to turn and go back down, and I would say no, because I know that if you drop me here, it means that your bus isn't getting sanitized, that the people behind me, they stand a risk. So how do we tackle this situation? Because people always say, oh, they're putting the policemen in front. But if you're breaking the laws, then police have to police you, you know? So how do we deal with this sort of situation?
Increase monitoring, and they had a long break. The charges, you have severe charges, you have ticketing charges. But it's ready to impose some of those. Because, as you put it, when the busmen told me in early March that they are afraid for their lives, I said, there's nothing that I could see. Except that if the transportation system is not working, the problem is becoming bigger. We have to move into the lockdown as quickly, as possible. And we did that. We never complained with them. But if they come out now and we're removing, you see, when you're removing the conductor to help them, the mandatory nature, not that you're asking them to drop whatever conductors that they have, and you're asking them to put in some mechanism to help, and that's the normal passenger. But they know that the buses must be sanitized. And that is why we're moving to give them a relief with the terminal fees. It may be half, it may be quarter, but remember, terminal fees go to the Port Authority. So we're in strong conversation with the Port Authority to see what is the maximum that they can give and for how long.
Right.
So we're trying everything to help them. So they must now understand that health, when they did not want to run, we say, okay, it's health. But they must not in any way put the health of the passengers at risk. Right. So come in, sanitize the buses. We're going so far, again, to work with them. I don't think that they are aware of this now. They may have brought it up. But to engage the banks and the financial institution and the insurances to ask them to give them a longer break. Because I think the insurances give everybody a break. Right? But most, yes, they did, so far as I understand. No, if we work for the busmen and ask them to give that sector in particular a break. Spare parts, we want to ask the people to give the bus sector a break. Because they're bringing the workers, yours, mine, everybody to place. And while they may be crying a bit louder than is necessary, we all understand. Because you, the same business, you are in trouble already with respect to not getting what was your original income intake.
Correct. So
we're asking all of this. So the police must do their work. We'll have increased inspection and monitoring. And the public too, The public must understand that they have a part to play.
Right.
The driver is from your area. He works on your route. You put him stand and tell him, the next time he does that, nobody will ride on his bus.
Correct.
Yes? And if you want to initiate it and put it, there's a website that you say this bus does not participate in the sanitizing. And the fate is up to them. Because not only the police, but it's people who use the buses, the passengers.
Yes. I think busmen should be encouraging the fellow busmen.
Exactly.
So to obey.
Yes.
Because this is about health. Sometimes people make the argument, well, government shouldn't do this or shouldn't do that yet because they're putting money ahead of health. But we are at the same time putting in the procedures that are going to safeguard health. But if people fail to obey it, and we do not remind them that they have a responsibility to obey it for our health and their health, then we are not helping in any way. We all have responsibility in this thing. It's not just government. It's just not 15 representatives. It's all of us.
All of us.
The whole of Grenada. Well, Minister, just to step back a little bit into infrastructure and road building and so, I know too that the St. Patrick's Road project was ongoing. It was halted, and I've seen they have restarted. Are there any new timelines? Do you have information as to where they are now based on when they should have completed, and how much more time they would take and so to complete that? I think it's the first phase that they are on now.
Yes. Well, the first phase in itself is a total new project. So when the Brother Bola say first phase, don't think that they'll continue so that you must go through all the financing on the system again,
Right.
for the second phase. So this component should have been completed in June 30th.
Okay.
COVID wiped out a lot. We have gotten an extension to December 31st, 2020. And as you know, for every project, it should be finished in June. You normally will still have to write the funding agency, not for more money, but for the extension, and they may have gone down to August or September. And with COVID in place, and they're going great guns, they may need a 1 month, into January, and the other case may be. If that is the case, we do not have any option like the state but to pick up the additional cost of delays. Yes, and as a matter of fact, under the construction contract, that they have already written, because they have people in Grenada, they have to pay for the houses, for the engineers, for the this, for the that, and no work is going on.
Right.
So they'll send a bill over, a claim for a certain sum. We'll discuss it with the funding agency, which is OPEC Fund for International Development, and they might take some, they might take none. But I think all institutions now are very sympathetic because they know what caused the delay. So hopefully they take all, but if they take half, that's additional sum. And when are these things coming? When the revenue is dropping.
Yeah.
So you understand, you in this time, you need proper management, proper financial knowledge in running every business. And the biggest business is government. So people would ask, sometimes you cry at nights and say, well, how do I get it? That is why I spent so much of my time in the last thing. We had a team on the COVID. I am even part of that team. But most of my time was spent with the World Bank, with the IMF. So all the monies you hear came back in working with finance. I led a lot of the negotiations inside to that.
Well, I would have insight to that from my time in government,
Yes.
knowing that behind the scenes you put in a tremendous amount of work, more than what anybody can imagine as it relates to almost every aspect in government, but finance in particular. While your substantive position is infrastructure, I know that throughout the night and with all of the negotiations, and so you sometimes stop that. But I just want to bring us back a little bit, Minister, and you may be well placed to help us with that. While you are not the Minister of Finance, how much do you think that the restructuring, the rules and regulations, the Fiscal Responsibility Act, and all those things that was put in place after the 2013 election, when we came back, when the NNP came back into government, at a time when the economy was having negative growth, where public servants were struggling to get their pay at the end of the month, a whole lot of structure was put in place. We had a self-imposed structural adjustment program. A lot of people cried foul, saying, why would government want to do that? There was 1 or 2 areas where taxation was increased and so. And I recall yourself, Prime Minister Mitchell and others saying that it is a sacrifice that we all must make, but it will be better for us in the long run. Excuse. Today, we see that sometimes for almost 3 months, there was hardly any production. Revenue has dipped to 50% or less. But every public servant continue to get their salary and on time, plus all of the social programs continue to run, and in some instances increase. How does that decision that was taken then to put our house in order, to ensure that we put percentages, like for example, salary should not cross 9% of our GDP and all those things. How has that assisted us to stay alive and be able, and if possible, make comparison to some of our regional countries, if you can? The difference between how Grenada was able to manage that during a crisis period as compared to the others.
Brother Buller, you're so correct. Without instituting those rules and measures, we would not have been here. In fact, we'd have collapsed before if we continue the same path. But the structural adjustment program, homegrown, and I want to say it is homegrown because I have dealt with every institution, the World Bank, the IMF, the European Union, all of them. And I've told them, we are doing this not because you tell us to do it, but because we know it is right. So when you come with this matter, I won't support it. And I say, you know where that's going? I'm sure the Minister for Finance and Prime Minister will not support it either. And the government will not support it. So as leader of government business, all the rules, all the laws that were passed, I piloted them. In the middle of the night, IMF officials were calling me and say, change this and change that and the other. Change it on the floor. Huh? I'm talking about the night of the next meeting. Mm-hmm. There was some that I said, I told your officials that we should go that way. It is good that you see light in it. No, this will happen. But those are the things that you want to slip through the crack. They will not happen. And
yeah.
Those things will not happen. And that is how we got. That is why I say it is truly homegrown. It was not imposed on us. We did it because it is right. And without those mechanisms in place, we would not have reached there. In fact, some of the same persons that I dealt with when we were going for the $22 million, I dealt with some of them again. And they came down. And I'm telling you, the IMF is a different bunch now. Some of those who saw things in a different way, I think they're going back into where they were. And it is more difficult to deal with them now. I had to remind some of them that they were not there when we instituted the program. That is why we have this, and that is why we have that now, and that is why we'll be able to do certain things now. And if you feel that we are in a position that we should not qualify for this because we made tremendous strides, in other words, you want to beat us for being good, you can so do. Yeah, and that is how we got a lot of things in place. Some of the things they just wanted to show they might, but if it's not bad for Grenada, we'd go with it. And I want to re-emphasize the fact that you have made. Without the progress and the implementation of the rules and standards that we imposed on ourselves, with the help of the Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, has always been seen. Our partners, whether it's trade unions, whether it's the employers, the churches, and so. Yes, I think this is what is putting us here today, in a part that we could draw down 20 million from the World Bank, 22 million from the IMF, so much from CDB, etc. And some of the people that we borrow from, the international bond holders, I spoke to them as well. And we discussed at length the best thing for Grenada. So even if the G20 said that you should do some things, we discussed and we did ask for all the analysis. And I want to compliment the people at the Ministry of Finance. And we got the analysis. And we said, well, there's no way that you should try to take something from these people. Remember, when they tell you take a year grace, they compound the interest and the grace, and they say it is neutral net PV, net present value. That in itself has its own root. So I'm saying again, you have to be extremely knowledgeable. So although this thing was put forward, you sat with the bondholders and says, it doesn't make sense from what you have to do. With a bondholder, the quantity of work that you have to do, the agents, and the lawyers, and so forth. When we got the 50% haircut, the amount of monies that was charged for it, millions of dollars, because you have to have lawyers in the field, You have agents and you have representatives of both sides, the client plus the bondholder. And when you analyze everything and you put the cost, just to slip it down 1 year, simple benefit, a loss analysis. But you have to understand, you have to know how the IMF work. You have to know how the World Bank work. You have to know how the bondholders work. The SGM, the stock market that we have in the OECS, that's a piece of cake, in its simplicity. And when we realize not only Grenada, who has these bonds, and we got them cut. Remember, when these bondholders cut for half for you, it's a miracle to get it done here. Mm-hmm. I always give the example. When these bondholders were telling us no, the IMF then said, let me talk to them. Whatever they told them, I knew some of it, but they came back with a dung head. And with our push, we got it. That's why I'm telling you, the IMF is not the same institution, right? It's just simply there. It's not that partner that you had before. And the thing is that I say everything to their face.
Well, I know that about you.
Yes.
You're very plain and very straightforward.
Not that they don't
understand.
Not that they don't understand what they're doing, but that empathy that was showed. Okay, we understand, but we can't do this for you. That is not they know. This is how that. And therefore, I guess they may be bouncing back from the same wall. And they listen to every program in Grenada. The IMF do,
Wow.
So hence the reason sometimes when we sit on this program and we say to people that it is your right to disagree with government or a government principle, but you do not have to be disrespectful or disruptive about it, because what you're doing is destroying your own country when you go on air and say certain things. And 90% of the times the things you say are not the truth.
Not true.
Mm-hmm.
You use a 10% truth and you add so much more with it. You're not just making it bad for me or for the Prime Minister or the people in Parliament. You are destroying this little rock called Grenada, because as you rightly said, there are people who are listening. And they formulate their judgment on how they deal with us based on some of the utterances that they
a lot of people, especially on social media, it's my duty to be on social media, see what's going on. So when I come here, I don't speak from a place that it's unfamiliar. And I see people say a lot of things on social media. Sometimes they know it's a blatant lie, but at the same time they say it and they think with the impression that only their little circle or only people in Grenada get to see what they write, and that it has no effect on Grenada externally, not understanding that it's just like when you're quoting somebody. If you're quoting somebody, you're looking into their background, you're looking into what people are saying about them. It's the same with investors and people who are giving us grants and loans. They look at what the people are saying. They look at what's happening in our country. So when we put all these things out there about Grenada in such a terrible place, and we're doing so bad, and we're suffering, and we see in trouble, investors don't want to invest in a country that is on a downward spiral. So when we give that impression to the international community, we're actually shooting ourselves in our leg.
That is so. And I remember, when they listened to me in the Parliament debate. They listened to me whenever I had a program. I'm talking about the structural adjustment program coming up. Whenever I'm going on a program on the radio, I get a comment, an email the next day, the next time, and so forth, because they see the direction that we're going. So don't think, if they have interest, if they don't have interest, they may not.
Right.
But they listen to Grenada. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that they understand is the progress that we have made so far. They associate with it, and yes, they should associate it with it. They don't want us to go down a bad route, because they also look as if, well, ultimately, you fail. Yeah. So we have that partnership going, but you must be able to manage it. It's not a master and servant relationship, yes? It's a partner. And that is why we need people who understand and who will not shy away. When you're afraid of something, that thing becomes your guardian.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Don't shy away and don't put across it.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people brand me as, some way, my hard or something like that. But the hard is for this piece of rock for Grenada.
Yes.
Grenada. With Grenadians, you will see I do my utmost. I push out. I give you that the softest. Some the Grenadian people might continue and say, "Well, you're too soft. You shouldn't have do. You shouldn't have this across that." But when it comes to Grenada, and when I represent everybody, it's a different picture.
Absolutely. Now, I just want to take this moment to say, guys, those of you who are listening, it's time to get your questions ready. We are going to begin opening the line so you guys can call. What we'll also do is allow you to post your question, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Facebook and WhatsApp. Remember, we can also take WhatsApp calls. And the number to call is 440-7377 if you're calling locally, whether it's directly or on WhatsApp. And if you are in the diaspora and you want to give us a call, it's 347-329-3101. Now, Minister, time is quickly upon us, but there is an issue that we must talk about. We must touch, because under every press conference, under every announcement, there are a few Grenadians who jump up on the oil and gas. And I know people are waiting to hear, well, what is the new decision, or is there some big secret or some hidden decision as it relates to oil and gas that they're not telling us about? But I do want you as well to make reference to our neighbors, Guyana, who has had oil or discovered oil for years and have not started tapping into that only until recently, and also that it's not just we say oil today and tomorrow something happens, but can you give us an update or remind us on where we are at as it relates to the issue of oil and gas?
Well, oil and gas, we're in the same position that we have been in a couple of years ago, in that we have done some drilling. We have identified gas in significant abundance, as the report says, and we're in the process of extracting it. Now, the estimated cost of doing this is in the $1 billion. So it is not a simple matter.
That is for just extraction. The $1
Total
billion.
development, and you start to get your gas to be sold.
Okay.
It is the investment into this that I think is causing this sort of delays. Government can't do it. Right? So you want to make sure that you have a group of investors. We are not attractive at the point in time to the majors, that is the Shells and the BPs and the big ones that are in Guyana. They were in Guyana since 1990, before the 1990s, right? They knew what was there. They just started to develop it when? 2 years ago? We only knew what was there when? 2 or 3 years ago? That's when you knew. When you drill and you hit, that's when you know. But they knew what was there, and they knew it's oil. Now, do not underestimate the demand for oil is significantly greater than gas.
Right.
So we say oil and gas. Maybe we have oil, but we have not reached that stage to drill in another area. What we drill, we found gas. And this is what most people expect when you look at the industry, because of our proximity to Venezuela and where Venezuela gas is, our proximity to Trinidad, when Trinidad gas is, they expected that whole area that we drill first will be gas. Now we have that advantage because Trinidad says that they will take all the gas that we can extract, because they do not have sufficient gas to fuel the train. They have some of the biggest gas train in the world, and they have ammonia plant, and they have a lot of industries using gas in Trinidad. They are prepared to build a pipeline. In fact, the Minister of Trinidad and Tobago announced it. He didn't hear us announcing it, okay? But where we're at a standstill now is to get the extraction of the gas for them. They'll bring it up to the platform in the sea, the pipeline there, and they'll take the gas away to Trinidad and Tobago. Now, every time we come and we are, they're listening now. The industry is listening. You have the wire, and there's technology that will sift through. And when you hear gas and oil, and it picks up and it says what is happening there. So every time we come and we make negative comments in the paper, as you say, the investors will say, well, what? Gas is not the best. And the price, what happened to the price of fuel over the last few months? It went down significantly.
Yes.
Now, a lot of things, not only in Grenada, there are over 89 projects that should have started, and they've gone further than us to sign on the dotted line. But in every contract, you will see if the price of oil dips below that, the person is exonerated. You have to wait until the price of, because they're working on this price to invest the billions, and if the price is lower, then it can't be done. But every time we come very close to it in Grenada, they listen. And suddenly you have what one investor, shying away, you have to move to the next, etc. I remember Mr. Ogis come on the radio, and he said in this, he was the energy officer, besides things being confidential, none of the investor wants the other country to know that you're in this country, etc. That's what he did. So they went and they extracted oil all over the world until they come back to Guyana now and decide, well, it's time to go there. Okay? So we have to be very careful. This talk about there is something to hide. There's nothing to hide. There's no extra system like that. What we want exactly is the investment to go ahead. And you could let an investment go ahead in this way. They come. They must give government a certain share. Okay? And it's not because they're wicked. When the price of oil is down, for it to make sense to them, you say, government, you see, you have to take 5%. I know you will take that, so you got to wait. They'll want 95% of the system and give you 5%, and then you could get them here. But the same people will turn and say, look at what they did. They sell out the business.
Yeah.
And when you look at what that 5% will do for you, it doesn't raise, your economy to the standard that you will want it. So you're looking at what to be there in the industry. You have to give up, We agree that you have to give up. And the investors agree too, but they would not start unless the price is right. When the president of the US called the OPEC countries and tell them they have to do something to raise the price, you aware of that? No, it made big news over the world. That price was going down so much. I think he engaged Russia, he engaged those who in OPEC, those who not in OPEC. And then Saudi Arabia said they will chop the demand by a certain amount of barrels per day.
Yes.
And the price started to go up again.
Right.
Because the producers in the US would have shut down a lot of things. And that is how the oil and gas industry works. Now, if you invest your millions and billions there already, that's the first one you to reopen. So you had planned to come to Grenada. You had planned to go to an island, they say, down in the Pacific. And you have everything tied up. But you would not go. You'll keep pushing it back. In the arrangement, we could get other persons to. And that is what we have to try to do. But you don't go out on the radio and engage and say what you're doing, etc. First, it's confidential. And secondly, it will be detrimental to you.
Right.
So a lot of the things said on programs have kept investors who were just on the border out of it.
Wow.
Because some very negative things were said, and was said by people who the investor feels may be in government, not that should be, may be in government. And then they say point blank, I don't want to be there. I don't have to be there. That's what they tell you. You know it, you know the industry. I don't have to be there. Just continue and open the next well in a place. Why do I have to come by you? When the risk, and every development today, as we analyze by the risk, political risk, financial risk, etc.
Yeah. So
if they're seeing that they're going to come, and if they feel that, well, I could give you a 40%, or a 55% will make my investment viable. And if they hear about people talking about they want this and they want that, they don't have to say it in so many words, but once they have that implication, they don't have to come by you anymore. And watch, it's not oil you have, it's gas.
It's gas, yeah.
They want oil, and they could do without gas. In the United States, the fracking of the rocks and so forth, giving abundance of oil. As a matter of fact, companies in the US that were coming to us, and everybody was touting what? Renewable energy. Renewable energy. Our brother Minister Simon Steele went out to represent me in Jamaica. And he asked me what has happened. Because the push is now to use oil and gas. But the gas we'll be producing here will never be as cheap as the fracking industry in the deserts, in the US, in Canada, and the other places. No. So we have to be thinking strategically. We have to not be ranting and raving our mouth off, but we have to land the finances to do it. Everything is ready, but nobody will now put the finance because of it. If gas price spiral up, a Grenada will go like a home with it. And we must realize too, Trinidad is prepared to build a pipeline to us. They're listening too. The US is well aware of this, sir.
Well, some people are already of the impression that that line has already been built and is drilling our oil or gas.
No, a pipeline is not a drill. A pipeline is just run like you run the cable on the sea. It just
understand.
run
They
to
don't
come to the
understand,
platform. Yes.
Minister.
But I mean, a limited few may not understand. But the danger is when other people who understand use them.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is the danger.
That is the danger.
Push them forward and go on the scene. It's not I who said something wrong.
Correct.
Somebody said, but
Where did you
other
come from?
but other people listen,
Yeah.
and it will influence them. So I think most of what is being said now is to detour. It's not that they're using the people so that he would not come on stream. He mustn't come on the stream on NNP. He mustn't come on the stream on that. But what they're doing, if we don't catch it now, let everybody give the investor a lovely picture. What happens? Look at the scenario to Venezuela. And a lot of the investors, we know they're looking there. If the system changed in Venezuela, it's not our business. And if they figured they could get something, would they be looking at us? We had to do a lot to bring it to the stage where they looked at us. Yes. And I could tell you that some of the majors, one, have already put it in writing. So we have to keep, pushing them. We're not to look at what a major did to Guyana. They knew what was there so many years before it comes.
Yeah.
But at least, whether it comes now or later, we want to tie it up so that it comes. So every negative remark made just slips somebody before us.
All right. Now we're going to start taking calls. I know the lines
Ask them to be short.
were ringing, but I need to stress that please keep your questions and comments straight to the point and as short as possible, under a minute if you can. All right. But Minister, I like the point that you made, because I don't think we understand or care enough to understand the implications of what we say about certain things. So you have an opposition party going on public radio and saying that secret deals are being made about oil and gas, or that the oil and gas is not true, or the government used it as a tactic to get votes and so on. And we have people in the international community listening to that and saying, well, we're listening to these people, and these people are probably going to be in government at some point in time. Is it safe for us to invest in this? And that is probably one of the reasons why we are still where we are as it relates to oil and gas.
Well, in a lot of other areas too, we may be doing well, but we could do better if you had responsible, persons.
All right, we have a caller on the line. Good morning, caller.
Hello, good morning. I'm just calling to ask the minister if they could do us a favor. There is a road up over the post office going to the Gulf Coast, because I know the minister passes there all the time. If they could get some binding to put in, because the road full of hole, and because there was a breaking in the road. If they could get a chuck with some binding or something to put in them holes, because this is a road that a lot of people is using and is mashing up people's vehicles. People is complaining about it. The minister know what road I'm talking about. So if he can do that for us, please, because the rain is coming and we want to get something be done on that road. If you could get some binding in that road, please, because he passed there all the time.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, caller. Minister, before you answer that, we have another call on the overseas line. Let's take that quickly. Remember, caller, keep your points short and sweet. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Miss Duncan, Brother Bowling.
Good morning.
And my great friend and brother, Honorable Boeing.
Good morning.
Thank you. I'm so happy to hear your voice today. The last time I saw you was in Manjulu.
Wow.
Don't tell people my name. You know your brother.
Okay.
All right. Continue what you're doing, brother. You make me happy, and I'm spreading the word to others. Have a blessed day.
Thank you so very much.
All right. Thank you so much, caller. Yes, Minister.
With the First Lady, I just want to get it very clear that she's talking about the Gulf Coast Road.
Gulf Coast Road, I imagine. She said over the post office. There's another
road over the post office.
I think,
so,
Minister, to be sure, probably you send one of your people over.
Yes, I'll send one of people. But we did do a lot of work on the Gulf Coast Road itself. And the people commented. They said they waited a long time, but it was done. So I'll look at both.
Okay, we have another call. Oh no, we seem to have lost that call. That was on the overseas line. So call again if you're listening. Minister, as it relates to roads, I know there are a lot of complaints as it relates to the condition of roads. People believe that, well, we pay so much in taxes, we pay license fee, we pay for inspection, and that must go towards the fixing of roads. Can you give us an idea, an overall a breakdown maybe even of what it costs to do maybe just one strip of road?
A strip?
Strip by the mile sometimes.
Yes, so I think we have a very good idea. It's like the 100 feet of road. You're looking at minimum 15 to 20 based on the location to 25,000 AC dollars.
In asphalt or in concrete?
That's in concrete.
In
yes.
concrete. Okay.
Yes.
So 100 feet could be anything between 50
and that's a good 100 feet. When you get a bad 100 feet that needs a lot of preparation, the $15,000 could only do something like 65 to 75 feet. Okay,
we have another caller on the line. Good morning.
Good morning to you, Ms. Duncan. Good morning, Minister Bowen. I mean, I'm glad to see you on the program this morning.
Good morning.
But just quickly, I ain't telling a certain person good morning this morning.
You talk because they're cutting you off in a minute.
Anyhow, I know we don't have much time. I know that you mentioned quickly about oil and gas, but I understood that there was some deal signed with some investor that was supposed to be secretive, and I want to know if that is true, because I'm hearing a lot of things. But when it comes to road, I want to stick on that. What if we change the way that how we build roads? Normally we build roads flat on the ground. What if we start using pile some places to build roads? Also, instead of using the asphalt, now what about concrete? Because I know this Maras Hill Road, I heard it mentioned this morning, but I know that was recently done before CCC was kicked out. I know that whole thing was done, but now I don't understand why is there an issue there. So I would just like you to address these points and have a good day.
Right,
thank you very much. So I'll be as quick as the host direct. In the first issue, we'll start at the Maras Hill Road. Yes, it was done, but the problem was caused by a broken main underneath. So it was there for many years. Maybe it rotted and a small hole became a bigger hole, etc.
Right.
And so you saw what is happening there. So we have found the lines, etc. And we must now do the retaining wall. And the other questions that you mentioned about is the oil and gas and secretive deal. No secret deal was signed. we told the nation exactly that there is arrangement for the exploration, and that drilling was done. What, as I said, Mr. Ogi says, the documents that you sign. There's no harm, and we said with whom we signed it. The documents that you said, you cannot put it in the newspaper.
And I think that is what the NDC administration, that is what they were calling for you to release the details of the contract that was signed.
Let me say, Gary, in 2008 we lost. The documents were in the ministry.
Right.
Did the NDC reveal any one of the documents?
They didn't release nothing.
You heard a certain person keep talking around it, because if you do that, then you have to pay with Grenada, and Grenada 20 times more. When you hit the International Court of Arbitration and they tell you you have done damage to this person because this person will give you a better deal, and you could extract a better deal than the other one.
Right.
That is why this thing is very secretive. And then when you expose your deal and the investor loses the other one, then you pay for the other one. And he will find 20 legitimately that he would have lost. And Grenada must pay for it. Ogis made that point abundantly clear. I could tell you, I signed a deal, well, not a, you don't call that a deal, the normal investment exploration agreement with Shell, or I signed it with System. That is what you will hear.
Right.
You would not hear what is the ratio of how Grenada will benefit. Have you heard what's the ratio the guys will benefit in Guyana? Trinidad has been this in over 100 years. The US, have you heard it? I want to end as I close. In 2008 to 2013, the NDC was there. They have read all the documents. In fact, they spoke about it in a peripheral way as you can. They never made one comment. Otherwise, all of us know we'll be paying for it through our nose.
Yes. if we expose it. But there's just one thing, Minister. What we signed was for exploration for testing purposes, right? To ensure, yes, we have of a commercial nature, yes, we do.
Yes.
But we have not signed any deal for commercial extraction of oil or gas as yet.
No, how the system works, if you get something, there will be an indication. You could always renegotiate later of how you would share in the profit, right? Yes, that's called agreement. So somewhere there you may have an idea of how you will share in it. And when you get a license now, if you reach and there is something there, then you must get a license, and the license will say, how you will share. Yes.
Right. Now, Minister, before we leave, of course, I cannot bring you here to talk about all things ministry and not constituency. I received a notice yesterday that you will be back in office attending to the needs of your constituents from tomorrow. Can you give us some light on that, and also tell us how things have been going within your constituency as a parliamentary representative?
Right. So we're opening up the office for people to see us virtually.
Right.
So we would not be, it will be responsible that you tell people you can gather. A lot of persons will come to see you, and they'll be gathering. Whether they wear face masks or not, you still have to put some local people to say no, 5 feet apart and so on. So what they do, they'll go to the office. I will talk to them through video conferencing, and they'll lock themselves in my room, so nobody will be listening to them. And then I will have to take the notes as usual, and then they go. But they have to do it now by appointed time, because you don't want them gathering in the building.
Right.
So they could call the office and say, I'm coming now. Well, you lost your time. Somebody say, I took them. So you reach out 5 minutes later. You don't want more than 2 persons at any one time standing up, because we don't have the facility. But we want to do it, and that will give us more time, because not only on one day we can do that. Whenever you call the office and they call me back, we set a time for you. So 2 may come on Monday, 4 on Tuesday, whenever we both have time.
Right. Now, does that also, what about people who are not able to call, but they usually just show up on a Thursday or to see you? Can they now, during the week, go to the office to make that appointment?
Yes,
to see you?
Call. I wouldn't even want them, because they come from far and wide, so don't take a bus to go to the office. Call.
Get a phone call.
Get a phone call.
Get your appointed time and day when you can.
When you
come.
can. If
Or
you're
they will call you
passing,
back.
if you're passing through the area, the office is open. There's the secretary there. Yes, but I want to encourage you to, pay the bus, come out. If you have a car, fine.
Right.
Right.
I know that I haven't received much notices from representatives, but I do know the Prime Minister in his constituency will be attending to people tomorrow as well. So for those of you who want to see him, it's by virtual means as well. I think he started last week.
Yes.
But for those of you who do want to see him, it continues tomorrow by appointment. Yes, you have to book your appointment by calling 440-1382 or 457-8227 or sending an email to St. George, that's st.geonw@gmail.com. Can you give us I think the number? It's 440-6183. 6183.
And it's 440-6183. The email is STGSE, St. George Southeast, PRO, Parliamentary Representative Office @gmail.com.
Wonderful. So you guys, you heard it there. And we are pressed for time. Minister, before you leave, do you have any closing remarks that you'd like to make?
Yes, and it is basically just simply in the form of information. The NAWASA, the GCF fund, the $125 million grant that we got from the Green Climate Fund. I know a lot of people are suffering for water. The Les Avocat and the PTA Tang, these two dams will be worked on so that all the St. Paul's area, library, etc., will be happy. That's next 2 years or so. Remember, it's a long project.
Right.
The groundwater, we're working on groundwater in the Calivini area as well. That's what the funds will do. In Calivini, we're working on treatment plants. Remember, when the rain falls, you have a lot of water now, but the water is turbid, and so we'll get all these things with $125 million, a significant sum. 12 storage facilities, and we want to start pipeline work in Victoria, Maribor by November of this year. And 2 major projects that we didn't have the time to mention about. The St. John's River, remember that's River Road? Yes. We want to the COVID stopped a lot of that. We're revamping. We have just getting the consultants on board, and the World Bank is working with us, but we definitely want to start working the dry season next year, so we might have to shift around the financing. I've discussed with the Minister for Finance, and we really want to get this thing started. The education project, GEEP, Education and Enhancement Project, many schools, including the Bishop College in Carriacou. We have gotten the contractor for that, and a lot of work will be going on in this area. BNTF, SIEP, a lot of construction work in this area. Special projects will be back on stream, in full swing. And what we want to do now, a lot of people, we do a lot of 15 and so. And don't forget, you cannot do 115 and continue the next 15. The procurement law prohibits that. So we want to do a piece that will solve it up to the 30 range. You have to tender.
Yes, tender for it.
So nobody might say, well, at a long time I get a little piece, I should be under 15. But when you do a lot of little 15, there's a piece here, a piece there. Yes, it serves its purpose, but it has to remain there for a long period before you could continue. And people don't know. Well, they just reach here and they stop. So we want to train our people. We did that under the construction subcommittee. We'll train them to be able to tender the smaller contractors, and somebody will win. And when you do a piece of job, it could remain, because it is a lot more than the 15, it could remain a good while because it is serving the community. And in energy, geothermal. Japan and New Zealand have been helping us with this project. And just to recall, St. Vincent, they did the geothermal, 7 megawatts. And it's going to cost them 4 US cents per unit. That's what, 10.8 EC cents? In Grenada is what, close to $1? But geothermal could be there. What they did too, because they're a state-owned company, they were able to get GCF monies. Right? So we have to look at all measures of getting what we can grant, but it's only for renewable energy, green energy. So solar and renewable, if we move into this, and being we could get the state to ask for funding. We get $125 million for Nawasa. Yes, so I think we're ramping up to get a significant sum to be placed in energy. Carriacou, they're getting the 600 kilowatts, $3.2 million grant from the UAE, and this will commence early next year. From the 5Cs, we've just gotten a project that we were about to lose, and that is a lot to do with renewable projects in schools, and nearly $500,000, $400,000 grant to go to the GDB so that you can come in and borrow. We must counterfinance 1.2 million, so we have $1.6 million so people could come and borrow, change the light bulbs and so forth, put solars on the roof and so. That's where the world is going, but you'll borrow. The important thing is GDB gets you some. When you borrow, you have to pay them back. They could always put it in the pool and release it again. Yeah, so there are lots going on, but our concentration now to bring back the economy is on construction. And that is why we want to change the source of financing just to bring construction work up. So if construction work could, start this year and escalate in the next year, we'll ease up a lot of persons. The bus conductors, I always feel sorry if some of them lose their job. That's one of the areas, as we said before, they could get involved into. And all those other persons in ICT and so forth, and training for them. So it looks good out there. We must have the capacity, and that is why I'm saying we will need to get at least the ministry. It's a large ministry. I know we've been called upon, so we need to get the people to do it. People, where will we put them? We don't have the facility there. Work from home. So we might have to give you the broadband and use the technology to get the work done. Otherwise, the way we want to ramp up, we will not be able to do it.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Minister. We have gone through so much information in such a short period of time, and I'm hoping that we can make this a regular occurrence where if not yourself, but someone from your ministry or representative can come and provide us with an update on what is happening in the Ministry of Infrastructure Development and with implementation and so on, so we can keep up to date. And I love the idea of training some of our young men in construction so that they have a fallback plan in the event. I am all for for backup plans. So I think that is a wonderful venture. And of course, please, we are always open for information. I know a lot of people tend to say, this is an NP program, but I keep telling people we are here to provide you with information, right? And that is how you should see it. That information is being provided. So if you can send one of your representatives, or even if you can come, whether it's once a month, bi-weekly, whatever it is, to provide us with that information, we'll be very grateful. But we thank you so much for taking the time to come and speak with us today.
Yes, so much to be said.
Yes.
We went through maybe about 5 or 10% of the ministries. Okay, but yes, we'll come back, particularly when we reach the stage of, a lot to be said, close implementation and so forth. But I think the public should know what's going on. So thank you for having us, and it's a pleasure to provide the information to the public.
Thank you again, Minister Boeing. I do know that a lot is always going on for you.
Yes.
Unknown to the public, but from my relationship with you, I know what you have been going through. But we're very, very happy to have you, and as was said by the host, anytime, every time, because sometimes we are here and people do call and raise concerns and ask questions. I do the best I can from the little that I know, but it makes sense time and time again, if not you, but maybe someone with as much information as you from the ministry. And it could be on one particular project. So, for example, even the GCF project with Nawasa, I recently heard someone on another program, basing that the government announced that this project is coming and people still suffering for water and without knowing what's happening. So we may need to do a program where Nawasa plus Ministry of Works can be together and to give more explanation. I knew that the COVID situation has held back a bit some of the work that should be progressing. So, there is so much more that could be said, but thank you very much. We appreciate and do continue to protect yourself, your family, your constituents by encouraging people to wear the face mask, keep the social distancing or physical distancing, wash hands regularly. We can't overemphasize that. I thank you again.
All right,
and
guys.
I just want to thank my staff in the constituency office. They have been out day and night, bringing whatever resources that we have to people, but we don't publicize it. I see other people, and nobody in the government, all of us have been doing this out there. From the Prime Minister, don't you ensure that people get things to go by, food stuff, medication, all of that, because the ministry is closed down. In that context, the needy assistance program and the constituencies provided a significant strain, and everybody who come forward to help, I want to say thank you to them, and thank you to the staff who brought so much relief to people out there. And as the quantities, they went up into hundreds of people got service. But the names will not be called. They will know. Yeah. It's not a big show to go on TV that I gave this and I gave that. One word. Thank you.
All right. Well, guys, in whatever you say and whatever you do, be safe and be secure. Like we say every day, we always want to be talking with you and never about you. Please do enjoy the remainder of your day.
Stay up to date with all that's happening with the new National Party, NNP. Send us a message via text or WhatsApp on 405-8683 with your name, email, and constituency. Stay in the know with NNP. Get updated.
The following is a message from the Honorable Yolan Bain Hosford, Minister for Agriculture and Lands, on the occasion of World Day to Combat Desertification.
Fellow Grenadians, as Minister for Agriculture and Lands, I am pleased to once again be associated with this important celebration of World Day to Combat Desertification. The United Nations observance of Desertification and Drought Day is held on the 17th of June each year. In 2020, the focus will be on changing public attitudes to the leading driver of desertification and land degradation, humanity's relentless production and consumption. Plant and animals provide most of our food and clothing. Therefore, as the demand for food, feed, and fiber increase, there is an increasing competition for arable lands, a competition we expect to intensify with increases in global middle classes and overall production growth. It is important to note that globally, almost 75% of all lands have been transformed from its natural state, and the pace of conversion is accelerating. This puts lands for agricultural use at a disadvantage as the demands for lands for urban expansion and infrastructure are growing, which contribute to the advent of climate change. It is projected that by 2050, the planet will be home to 10 billion people deserving of food and fashion, which require prompt changes to lifestyles, thus influencing business practices and policies. Therefore, as we seek to implement mitigation measures, Desertification and Drought Day seeks to regulate the use of food, feed, and fiber, thus promoting the wise use of our land resources that support all life forms. It is estimated by 2020, an extra 593 million hectares of agricultural land will be required for food production. Water in food production could reach 10 to 13 trillion cubic meters annually. Land used for grazing and grain production to feed animals will account for 80% of agricultural land globally. 90% of natural ecosystems will transform primarily to produce food, feed, fiber, and fuel. It is obvious that the amount of productive lands will decrease further due to climate change, which will hinder efforts to recover the land's productivity. However, it must also be noted that land used for food, feed, and fiber are also contributing to climate change. As we continue to minimize the impact of desertification and drought, we are called to make changes in consumer and corporate behaviors and the adoption of more efficient land use planning and more sustainable land management practices. Urbanism and globalism means that land degradation is driven by demand for products that are consumed in urban areas or other countries. This puts the responsibility for land degradation on the doorstep of every individual consumer. The choices people make when buying food or clothing have long-term consequences on the land, thus impacting future generations. My ministry is taking the lead through drafted and soon-to-be approved policies that focus on land and drought. With the soon-to-commence UNDP, GEF, Ecosystem, and Landscape Restoration Project that will focus on restoration of degradation projects and is about to submit to GEF with our regional brothers a project named Soil Care that will focus on enhancing our soils to guarantee their fertility for the next generations. We are also about to begin the preparation of a land degradation neutrality transformative project that will focus on the cocoa, nutmeg, and forestry subsectors, thus recultivating thousands of acres that have been left abandoned since the passage of Hurricane Ivan and Emily. It is my wish that Grenada will once more become a major producer and supplier of a wide variety of agricultural crops to meet our local needs and for export to contribute to national sustainable development. I believe that we are a nation that has been endowed by God with rich, fertile soils, and we should utilize it in a wise and sustainable manner to improve livelihoods and maintain a healthy environment. The Ministry of Agriculture and Lands, and by extension, the Government of Grenada, and on the occasion of World Day to Combat Desertification in 2020, invite all Grenadians to take some time to reflect on all the benefits that past and present generations have enjoyed and commit ourselves to doing more to preserve our lands for future generations. May God help us as we seek to reverse the negatives that have afflicted the sector over the years and bless all farmers and landowners across this beautiful island nation of ours. I thank you.
The proceeding was a message from the Honorable Yolande Bain Hosford, Minister for Agriculture and Lands, on the occasion of World Day to Combat Desertification.
Stay home. If you are told to self-isolate, it means staying at home, not going to work, school, or other public places, and you should not have any visitors. Separate yourself. If you live with others, then you need to stay in a well-ventilated bedroom with the door shut. If you have to share a bathroom, then use it after everyone else. Don't share towels and toiletries, as this may put others at risk. Call ahead. If you develop symptoms such as a fever or cough, then seek advice first by calling the Ministry of Health's hotline at 538-4787 or 458-4787. Please do not show up at a medical center or hospital, as this may put others at risk. Take care with waste. If you test positive, your waste should be double bagged and disposed of separately. Create a buddy system. If you live on your own, you can plan with friends and family to check in with each other and run essential errands if one becomes sick. Once sick, they should leave groceries on the doorstep. Why it's important. COVID-19 causes a mild illness for 4 out of 5 persons. Self-isolating will help protect the older generation and those who may have underlying health problems from getting infected.
Tourism Minister leads tour of MBIA in preparation for expected flight of repatriated Grenadians later this week. Details of this story and more in the national report. Welcome back. With the details to the news for Tuesday, June 16, 2020, I am Sherian Noel. Tourism Minister Honorable Clarice Modest Kerwin led a team of MBI officials on a tour of the Morris Bishop International Airport on Tuesday morning to revisit the protocols in place and make necessary adjustments ahead of a flight expected on Friday. The tour team also included COVID-19 response coordinator Dr. George Mitchell. The flight is expected to bring 88 Grenadians who are stranded in the United States, the first with repatriated Grenadians from the U.S.
We have looked at the space for the arrivals, where they're going to be testing, and so within the next 2 weeks, we expect all of the infrastructure to be in place. And as I said, hopefully on Friday, we will see our first flight bringing in Grenadians to be repatriated from the USA. And from then on, we'll see what the airlines are offering.
The tourism minister says the incoming nationals will go through a more rigorous procedure to ensure that all the necessary protocols are adhered to.
They have to be tested, and there will be screening. There will be a more rigorous questionnaire to get information. So that will be there. And also, we're trying out, from the last batch who came, we started to try out the app that does the tracking of people and their movements, which is so critical, just in case we have somebody who is infected, then we'll know exactly where they went and know exactly where to go. So a lot of things are happening to give us that sense of comfort, but more importantly, to give the Grenadian people that sense of comfort, and of course, visitors.
She says all the arriving nationals were duly informed through the embassy in Washington that a one-off fee will be charged to offset the cost of quarantine and testing.
Government has tried as far as possible to subsidize or to meet costs in repatriation, especially where the cruise ship crews were involved. And by the way, we brought in 113 yesterday, our biggest batch so far. And after that, we think the numbers will begin to get much less and much more manageable. But we are all aware that the revenues of government have significantly depleted. And therefore, we will be asking, and we've communicated that to our embassy in Washington, that we will be asking them to contribute something to the testing. There will be just one flat cost very reasonable. And I say that because there may be necessity to do repeat tests, but there'll be just one charge, bearing in mind that everybody is suffering negatively from the impact of COVID. So that is being communicated so that when persons come, they will know that they have to contribute to the quarantine and to the testing.
Minister Modest Cowan says the arrival of the repatriated Grenadians can be seen as a simulation for what's to come when the borders are officially opened. Moving along, a pre-primary school to serve students from the Happy Hill, Brizan and Bushiju communities is now under construction in the Bushiju area. The project falls under the Basic Needs Trust Fund's 9th program to the tune of $1.8 million, funded in part by the Caribbean Development Bank and the Government of Grenada. The contract for the construction of the pre-primary school has been awarded to Hanover Construction, and its senior construction supervisor, Anand Ramnanan, says since the resumption of work, they have already cast 1/3 of the ground floor slab and are now preparing the balance for pouring of concrete in the upcoming week.
Persons employed in the project, well, we have 2 crews. We have the concrete and we have the steel fixing crew. Right, on average, we have anywhere between 15 to 20 workers on any given day, and then we have the other service providers like the electrician and the plumber who will come in from time to time as required on site.
And what's your ratio of local workers, or is it all local workers?
It's all local labor, yeah, all local labor on the project.
He outlined some of the specifics of the project to the GIS team.
It is a 1-story structure where we have 6 classrooms, principal office, and there's a green play area in the middle, right? The overall area is relatively half acre of land, right? Half acre of land, and with the external drains and the permanent fencing on the outskirts.
Ramnanan says his company is extremely strict when it comes to adhering to the COVID-19 protocols as established by the Ministry of Works.
The Ministry of Health visited the site prior to the COVID-19 and everybody being at home. We had certain protocols to follow, which is installing 2 hand wash stations on the site based on the number of workers that we have. 2 was recommended. We have the signage, and the basics on site is the social distancing, the face mask, and we also had where you sanitize your hands ever so often. So like every hour you'll find the workers will go and will sanitize as required. And first and foremost, we're entering the site. They report to the security will sanitize, the sign-in. The sign-in procedure is very, very important for the contact tracing, as recommended by the Ministry of Health. Right, so the Ministry of Health, when visiting our site for the inspection, they were quite happy. They told us that our site was most prepared, and they like how our setup was for the COVID-19.
The school will consist of 6 classrooms, a lunchroom, principal's office, staff room, and an open play area. The students and teachers will then be relocated from the building that they now occupy that was once known as the community center in the village of Happy Hill. This is the National Report. More news after the break.
Distance makes the difference. Keeping the nation positive, we can do this together by uniting apart, reaching out to you at home and in the diaspora every Wednesday night from 8 to 10 right here on GIS. Join me. If we hold on together, our dreams will never die. Be a part of flattening the fare curve and replacing it with hope and positivity, sharing the stories and the expectation of a brighter tomorrow. We can beat this virus. Remember, we are in this together. Distance makes the difference. DMD, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. here on GIS. Sharing is caring.
Welcome back. More than 3,675 beneficiaries have received payments through either payroll or income support on the government's COVID-19 stimulus package. That number includes 114 businesses. For individual applicants, 472 bus owners received payments, and that number includes those owning more than 1 bus, while on the payroll support, payments were made to 2,835 employees. Chanel Andrews, who is assigned to the COVID-19 Economic Support Unit with responsibility for public relations, spoke of the criteria for qualification under the program.
To qualify on the payroll, In terms of hotel accommodation and accommodation facilities, which is inclusive of guest houses, villas, you must be registered with the Grenada Tourism Authority. You must be registered with the National Insurance Scheme, that is for remitting payments on behalf of your employees. And as a business, you must also be registered with the Inland Revenue Division. These are the mandatory requirements for hotel accommodation and guest house facilities to benefit under the payroll support program. In terms of the restaurants and bars, you must have a full restaurant and bar facility. We are not paying standalone bars or standalone fast food shops. We also have small travel agencies and dive facilities that also benefit under that program. They must be also registered with the Grenada Tourism Authority.
She adds that for income support, public bus owners must own the vehicle to apply, and taxi owners and spice vendors must be registered with the Grenada Tourism Authority.
For the categories where you must be registered with the Grenada Tourism Authority, if you are not registered, you would not be able to be approved under the payroll and grant income support program. However, there are other measures that you can benefit from, such as the unemployment benefit provided by the National Insurance Scheme. We also have the Small Business Development Fund facility that is disbursed under the Grenada Development Bank, and also the Small Hoteliers facility. So you may not be able to, if you are not registered with the Grenada Tourism Authority or Inland Revenue and the National Insurance Scheme, to benefit under our program, but you may be able to benefit under other programs, other measures that are in place.
The deadline for application is June 30th, 2020. Ms. Andrews says they are working diligently to assist individuals who have been laid off or otherwise affected by COVID-19.
With respect to Royalton employees, we would like to apologize for the delay and assure all the employees who would have been laid off and have their termination letter and would have completed an application form at our office that we would commence payouts next week, as early as next week. We would also like to apologize to the market vendors who we have not made any disbursements in terms of payment to date. We would also commence that payment next week.
And finally, in the news, the Ministry of Youth Development is putting systems in place to begin training for Project Fly. 2020, however, training will be conducted under a revised system. Communications Officer Eugenia Peters has more.
The Willis St. George Community Center and the Dover Government School will be the focal points for Fly 2020. Fly, Fostering Level-Headed Youth, is a one-year integrated community-based training program targeting 25 at-risk youths aged 18 to 30 years. However, given the global COVID-19 pandemic, the Ministry of Youth Development has adjusted its operational guidelines to ensure the program continues, but also that participants are kept safe throughout the training period. According to Project Officer within the Ministry of Youth with responsibility for youth diversion, Johnny Caliste, the project was officially launched in February, and the ministry is now ready to commence training.
Both projects were launched in February, and because of the COVID-19 situation, we had to put it on hold. So we are looking to restart. Of course, we are restarting under different circumstances. We are operating in a new normal. So social distancing is one of the things that we have to look at implementing in the centers. We already looked at both centers, and we recognize that we could have social distancing based on the seating that we have for persons. They would be expected to wear masks. Sanitizing solutions will be provided upon entry into the center, and of course every day we would sanitize the center. So that's really the route that we're looking to take in terms of starting the projects officially in the middle of a pandemic.
The project, among other aspects, will include 3 months of life skill training, the project officer added.
During the life skill session, participants will be trained in personal development in topics such as emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, career guidance, etc. After that, they move on to 6 months of skills training, direct skills training, in a variety of areas. We have not decided the skills training as yet that they will be engaged in, but I can say off my head that construction and general agriculture is definitely two skills that we are looking at. After that, they will do 2 months of internship, which also includes small business training, and then from there they would graduate and move into the workforce.
Mr. Khalid says the 2020 training is also of significance as it seeks to get the community involved in the journey.
Project Fly 2020 we're hoping that it will be a little different to the previous Project Fly we have in that we want the community to be more involved in it, the parents of the participants to be more involved. So we would be having probably a week of parenting session with the parents of the participants. And of course, there's a community project that they must complete. So there's going to be something done within the community. And we have an ambitious plan to try to make the participants form themselves into an organization, a youth organization in the community. So at the end of Project Fly, we should have something like a Willis Young movement or something like that, where they form themselves in a group and deal with community issues, youth issues, where they can contribute to the development of the community.
In 2019, 2 cohorts of Project Fly were introduced in the communities of Mamacan and Pearls in St. Andrew. Previous cohorts of Project Fly were implemented in the communities of Rose Hill St. Patrick, Mantou St. George, St. David, Carriacou, and Victoria St. Mark. From the Ministry of Youth Development, Sports, Culture and the Arts, I am Communications Officer Eugenia Peters.
And with that story, come to the end of the National Report for Tuesday, June 16, 2020. On behalf of the entire news and production team, I am Sherry Ann Noel, thanking you for viewing.
Stay up to date with all that's happening with the new National Party, NNP. Send us a message via text or WhatsApp on 405-8683 with your name, email, and constituency. Stay in the know with NNP. Get updated.